In 2020, Zhang Jing received orders from 10 companies that do business with Amazon. This is from Agnes.
Oh, we're live right now, Kent.
Okay. Then I won't go on. I will stop there.
That's right.
I may be dumb, but sometimes I.
Richard Grace and James, the astrophotographer, on. Happy Thursday, everybody. Oh. All right. God, Friday's tomorrow. How did that happen?
all. Commit murder every 20 years. I know you called me. I'm gonna get them ready tomorrow. I'm gonna come in early. I'm gonna fix it. I'm gonna give it to Jonathan right now. See if there's anything lingering. It is rough your attention. The devil here. Jonathan is on his tiny little reindeer.
Mike Wiesner, I'm going to put that on a t-shirt.
We are working on something that is the cleanest we've ever really attempted to send into space.
The Perseverance mission has as its central goal astrobiology.
Yeah, you're gonna watch.
Also, being the first step in Mars sample return. We're going to collect a suite of samples, about 35 samples, that each weigh about 15 grams.
And the reason we collect those intact samples is that we are the first mission that's part of Mars sample return, and it's our job to collect the samples intact to be brought back to Earth for further analysis.
To better assess the question of, was there life previously on Mars? Inside the belly of the rover sit a number of sample tubes and an entire adaptive caching assembly that is used to help collect these samples.
Extraordinarily complex robotic system. And to make it even more complicated, it has to be super clean. We don't want to have these samples come back from Mars and discover life in them, but then realize, oh, that's life that was in the apparatus when we sent it to Mars.
That was a big challenge for the mission because we were meeting cleanliness standards that no rover mission has ever had to meet before.
The requirements that we have for this mission are extraordinarily challenging.
Once we would go through machining the tube itself, getting all of our protective coatings on there, and then looking at our beautiful tubes, we found carbon contamination in places we were not expecting. So as a team, we all had to really come together and look at the entire manufacturing process, how we're handling these tubes. We had to start polishing the interior bore prior to putting on some of our protective coatings.
It meant having to come up with an entirely new technique to clean all of the hardware and demonstrate that the hardware could maintain that cleanliness all the way to Mars.
That's what JPL does. I mean, we discover problems and then we solve them.
Having these very strict controls and this record of how much contamination or how clean these tubes are prior to going to Mars is essential for that return sample science.
Great discoveries require remarkable evidence, and so the cleanliness of the sample tubes and of all the hardware that's going to be collecting those samples is paramount in making sure that the evidence and that the story and that the discoveries that come from these samples that are brought back are irrefutably Martian.
Well, hello everybody. It's Scott Roberts and Kent Marts here at in the building at Explore Scientific. So it's so cool to be back and to I just I love the vibe here, and I love being surrounded by my toys and the interaction with all the employees and everything, and it's just it's just a great place to be. So I don't know how you feel about that, Kent, but I got you muted here.
Yeah, it's it's hard when we're all social people and like to be around people.
Yeah.
And when you sit in your bedroom for 25 days or however long I sit in my bedroom, it's
right.
Ooh, it's tough, and this is better than nothing, but most assuredly knowing that you're over there in the office is just a better feeling than knowing I can talk to you on the phone or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Yeah.
And for you, I mean, you're so social. It's had to have been hard, you know.
It was definitely different,
Yeah.
so, I mean, I enjoy alone time, like I think anybody does. But I also really enjoy just being around people and interacting with them and, problem solving together with people and stuff. So, and I think overall, I think that has been one of the big challenges just for the whole COVID experience. So, I was so sorry to hear that you did come down with it. That you seem like the same old Kent I ever knew. So,
Yep.
yeah, feel okay?
Oh yeah, feel great. Like I said, like I keep telling people, they ask, and I've had flu worse than that. So I was blessed in that regard that it was just flu, basically. Yeah.
Right,
Knowing that it's a flu that can kill you more than the flu can kill you.
right.
That was the hardest part,
Oh
probably.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
true.
Yeah.
Let's see who's on with us today. We've got Richard Grace and James the astrophotographer. Steve Crowley's with us. Mike Wiesner says hello, and Kent Noble, I'm glad you're better, Kent. Yes. Book Davies says, how do you do, everybody?
He was like, well, I guess we'll just see what it looks like.
Friday is tomorrow. Who's over there, Kent? Steve Crowley says, good timing. I can watch this while working on a mosaic. That's very cool. And Eduardo Simone says, good afternoon, everyone. Tim Meyer says, good afternoon, star people. Jim Norwood says, Thursday's okay, but I think I'll be happier on Friday. Jeff Wise is with us. Cameron Gillis, hello from Seattle today. I'll be AFK multitasking from work. Mike Wiesner says, replying to Jim Norwood, but Friday puts you a day closer to another Monday. Yeah. So, anyways, everybody's happy to be here, I think. It appears Gary Varney was actually at the launch for the Mars 2020, so that's very cool. I'd like to go see another major launch. That was I saw the last space shuttle launch, and it was amazing. Jim Norwood wants to know, did you have somebody feed your tardigrades while you were gone? The thing about tardigrades is you don't have to feed them, okay? You don't have to feed them. You can neglect them for years. They make the perfect pet, so here they are, and probably pretty soon, next show or
And then
two,
he was like, well, obviously.
I'll let him out and let him play. So, but Harold Locke says top of the afternoon, and Gary Varney says good afternoon as well. As Jeff Wise points out, the Perseverance rover is less than 30 days away, 27 days to go. So it's going to be very cool. I think there's going to be some major press about it. It is one of the most advanced space exploration vehicles that we've ever developed with this rover, and I think it's awesome. So today, Kent, you wanted to talk about eyepieces.
Yeah, FirstLight Chronicles, and trying to continue that theme of people's first light, and lots of people went out and bought telescopes, and they come entry-level telescopes, and toy telescopes come with a certain level of eyepieces that are, the less expensive, the more toyish it is, the less quality they are, and they tend to be Huygens or Kellners or something like that. The FirstLight telescopes all come with Plossels, and they're generally 26 millimeter and 9.7 millimeters. They're great little eyepieces. They're inexpensive, but when people start thinking, okay, I want to upgrade a little bit, what's an inexpensive, efficient way of upgrading? And clearly, buying a few eyepieces is the first step. And you can put some very expensive eyepieces on some inexpensive telescopes, and they work really well, as we well know. But sometimes it doesn't make sense to put a $200 or $300 eyepiece on a $150 telescope in some people's minds.
I think it makes perfect sense.
It works. I mean, it's amazing the difference.
It
But
makes a huge difference. Makes a
You know,
huge difference.
there's been people who've come into the store and they went with the eyepiece, the 26 millimeter Plasa that comes with it,
Yeah.
and come back in after a month or two, and we put them into a 52 degree or a 62 degree, and they're astounded at how much better the eyepieces are.
That's right.
And so it's about getting started and holding down the cost to get you in the door, and then you start thinking upgrades. And
Yep.
eyepieces are the first thing to think about on
Sure.
about any telescope is jump into a new eyepiece.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't have to be expensive. You can go to the 52 degree. They're not they're from $65 to 109 or something like that. Not super expensive. And like anything else, you start building your kit. You buy replacements.
Kent, when I started selling telescopes in the 1980s, Plössl eyepieces were, like one of the
Oh yeah,
best eyepieces you could buy. And they used to sell Plössl eyepieces. I'm talking about the 1 1/4 inch ones. Those used to sell for well over $100 a piece. Okay.
Yep.
Now they're kind of like the eyepieces that you will get with a lot of starter telescopes, especially our FirstLight series. So, Mead Instruments did that. When I was working at Mead, we did put Plössls on a lot of beginning telescopes. Occasionally, a buyer, when they're buying for Christmas, occasionally they'll force you to go for even sharper prices and everything. And the first things to go, really the first two things to go are the sturdier tripod, okay? And tripods cost, mounts cost. And then the eyepieces, so that's, but one of the things that we won't do, we won't stoop so low as to start taking out the secondary lens elements out of refractors and putting a field stop behind it, and then calling it like a 60 millimeter when it's with a field stop, it might be a 50 or a 40, Those field stops behind a singlet lens are done to try to eliminate the horrible chromatic aberration that comes from a single lens element, Can be done, but we don't think it's legit, and so we just flat out don't do it. If we're working with a buyer that's educated a little bit in optics, they clearly see the difference, from telescopes that have Huygens eyepieces or modified achromatics or Kellner's. So there's Ramsden eyepieces. Those are some of the older designs. There can be very good eyepieces in all those designs, but they have to be done right. And if they're done on an inexpensive telescope, more often than not, they're not done right. And so the getting up there, as Kent says, with these eyepieces is the best thing. So what do you recommend to people when they're looking at those first eyepieces, Kent?
I keep myself muted so my background noise doesn't overtake you. I don't make recommendations of a specific eyepiece.
Mm-hmm.
I know that I will have a discussion about my operating theory of eyepieces. In my experience, you're better off, if you want to buy the whole set and have the money no matter what, then spend the money. But if you don't have the money to buy the whole set, then be thinking about doubling the magnification every step. So from a 30 to a 20 to a 10 to a 5, or a 30 to 15 to 7.5. Think about those doubling of magnifications every time. And that's what you want to approach buying eyepieces that way. Then the question becomes, okay, how much money do I have to spend, and what do I buy that follows that doubling of magnification. And the point of doubling the magnification is if you go more than double, if you went from say a 40 millimeter eyepiece to a 10 millimeter eyepiece, what you're trying to center up in the 40, by the time you get the eyepieces switched out and focused, it's not going to be in the 10 millimeter eyepiece. But if you go from a 40 to a 20 and double it, you're still going to be it's still going to be in the eyepiece. You get it centered up and fine-tuned more. Then you go to the 10 millimeter eyepiece, double that magnification again. You still have it in the field of view. And that's my discussion, is not so much about, I think you should buy the 82 degree eyepieces.
Mm-hmm.
It's here's my theory of eyepiece usage. Now what fits your budget?
Right.
And then we start getting into, okay, this is your budget. So which of these eyepieces come closest to fitting the perfect doubling? And, with the situation we have now, what do we have in stock as well? Because that does come into play on some of the eyepieces.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And we do have some stocking questions, so I'll ask you those here in a second. But Richard Gray says his first telescope upgrade was an 82 degree 8.8, and it was, all in caps, quite an upgrade. So I'm glad you really enjoyed that. I advised James the astrophotographer. He was looking at a 152 Mac Cass. I told him that it would be around the end of spring, beginning of summer for that that kind of product.
I think we're looking maybe a little bit later than that.
Are you?
August, I think is what we're looking at right now.
Okay.
For a whole bunch of stuff. So
how about the FCD 80s, the FCD 100s, 80s?
Let me look and see what I can discern real quick.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of people don't. Well, we've been saying that all along. We sold over a year's worth of inventory in something like 16 weeks. So it was pretty crazy.
When your timeline of production is already 9 to 11 months, you can order it in November, and it's going to be here in September or October, under general principles.
Yeah.
So
James says, "Cool, better than next year."
Well, that's true.
Yeah,
yes.
That's true. That's true. I've said this before, but in the 1980s, when I was manager at OPT, most telescopes were a year to get. It was not unusual at all to have to wait 12 months for a telescope. The other thing you guys can do is, I put a link at the very beginning of this chat to check out our certified pre-owned products. And so as we get those, okay, because we'll be going through showroom inventory and sales samples, those kinds of things, trade-ins and stuff. This is where our certified pre-owned products come in, and you can check those out. They carry a full warranty. Do they look used? Yes, they look used, but they perform just fine. So,
I mean,
a heck of a deal.
It's gonna have blemishes. It's gonna have. If you buy a Costco Dob,
Yeah.
it's gonna have some scratches. It's gonna have some dents. It may have. It's cosmetic stuff, and if you're locked into what I've heard called jewelry, then you probably shouldn't buy.
You shouldn't buy it, yeah, unless
a certified
from a
pre-owned.
collector or something. There are people that collect our telescopes too, and never use them. But
Yeah.
those people are probably least likely to put them back on the used market. So
I'm sitting here looking through. There's so many spreadsheets to look at, and of course, it's got last year's inventories flow on it too, which makes it forever to try and find something. We're looking at FC 100s at August.
still August.
August, yeah. we look at the ED80s. ED80s look like Marchish for ED80s. A good size shipment of ED80s is, they haven't shipped yet. So,
Yeah.
so if they ship, although the estimated ready date's right about now, so if they haven't shipped yet, so if they ship, we'll say February the 1st, it's generally about 35 days, 28 days across the ocean,
Yeah.
another 7 to 10 days to get here. So I build in another, week to get them through quality control because a lot of people don't know this, but every single telescope above FirstLight, so the Essential Series and higher, every telescope that comes in, we unbox. The guys in the crew in quality control unboxes the telescope, removes it from the cradle, removes the white wrapping paper, cleans the optics, collimates the optics, polishes the telescope, dew shield,
Checks the optics.
We put every single telescope goes on the double pass laser or the single pass laser, and then is collimated, and then it's cleaned and polished and put back wrapped in tissue paper again. The focuser is checked. When they collimate it, it gets racked in and out, and they feel it. They test the slow motion control knob because we're turning that to get a very fine, precise focus, or get it out of focus precisely to create the airy disc. And then it gets white tissue paper back on it, goes back in the box, gets resealed, and goes out on the pallet and waits for one of our customers to order it and get a new wonderful telescope. And we've had a couple of people who got new telescopes this week, and first thing they do is shine a bright light on the front optic, and they see dust. And just like dust, if we've all been in a darker room, and there's been a shaft of sunlight come through, and you can see all that dust floating around in there. In fact, there's a commercial on TV with a lady who pulls a black hoodie over her face, or a gray hoodie, because all the dust floating around in the air. And these are open air systems. There's open air inside, between the elements. When you pull the paper off and pull it out of the styrofoam, and then pull the lens cap off and set it down on your couch or on your dining room table to look at, you have charged the telescope up with static electricity, and it's going to suck dust up onto the front of the lens and potentially the back of the lens. And that's, it's hard for people to see that dust. And
this is what I show people. Okay. I like to show this image.
I know what image you're going to show.
This one right here.
Oh, that's not the one.
It's the same scope, different image. This is McDonald Observatory's.
This is it. Okay.
This is the 2.7 meter telescope at McDonald. And once upon a time in the 1970s, a guy took a handgun and started blowing holes into the mirror. They thought, they were just distraught over this. They thought that they had lost their very, very expensive mirror here. But look at all these impact marks on the mirror itself. He found that when the handgun wasn't cracking the mirror in half, he went down with a hammer and started hitting the mirror itself. So there's, it was really a kind of an amazing, catastrophic day. But guess what? Even with these holes and all of this distress that he was putting upon that mirror, they couldn't even really measure the light loss or performance loss of this telescope. The lesson here is that a speck of dust or a few specks of dust, or actually a lot of specks of dust, have almost zero effect on your telescope. You can't see it, you can't measure it, even if you're doing research. If you see dust through your telescope, it's actually going to be in the eyepiece, not on the objective lens side, okay? Or if you're making images, it's dust on near the sensor of your camera. So
once you start, and David Levy, I don't think has ever cleaned his telescopes. He lives in
No.
Arizona.
He lives in Arizona. It's pretty
And next time I'm at his house,
yeah,
I'm going to ask him permission to take pictures of his optics
yeah.
and utilize those
He
because
discovers comets and asteroids and supernova, and
right.
yeah, he's doing very serious astronomy there. So
And he's got a large roll-off roof observatory
Yeah.
that is nowhere near airtight. And
no.
you live in the desert and the wind blows and dust is everywhere.
Mhm.
And if you're concerned about pristine optics, then you're never going to use a telescope in Arizona, or you're going to be cleaning it all the
We're
time.
in a lot of places.
Yeah,
Pretty
a
much-
lot of places.
Yeah, planet Earth, So
But
But,
you're going to scratch your coatings. You're going to, grind something into the glass and create more of a problem than there are by having dust on your objective lens or on your primary mirror. So, sitting here, Josh Bush asked a question on Facebook. Hi, Josh.
Mhm.
I'm ready to buy an AR 127 on a Twilight 1 mount. Can I pick it up in Springdale tomorrow? The short answer is no. Sold out. And that's, a problem. That's the situation. We sold out of effectively almost all of our FirstLight telescopes. We've got a couple of lines left with
now,
some.
AR-127 is not a FirstLight telescope. That's
Well, it's on okay. It depends on what he's talking about. Being on, I assumed it was an AR 127, a DAR one, a FirstLight 127 on a Twilight 1 mount. And if that's what you're looking for, Josh, we don't have any. The other problem is if you're talking about getting a doublet, a DAR,
yeah.
then we don't have any Mazo 1s. We don't have any Twilight 01s. So
We have here. We have an AR-127 airspace doublet, certified pre-owned though, $489.
don't have any mounts.
Well, he could go find a mount.
Yeah, that's the problem.
No, so that's the deal. That's the deal.
We might be able to cobble one together that won't look real good because all the ones back in the back have been
All right.
cannibalized pretty well. I don't know if we'd be able to find the locks for them or not.
Well, we can always try.
Yeah, it's the 120. It's the 127 1200. That'd be the FirstLight one. Yeah, we don't have one, Josh. So, always a challenge. Eduardo Simone says, worst thing to do is clean it. He's exactly right.
Well, if you know how to clean it, it's not going to be a problem. And, we can give you tips and techniques on cleaning. But a lot of people have damaged their eyepieces, their mirrors, the beautiful multi-coatings on the refractor lenses and stuff like that, because they get in there with, they'll use a tissue like a lot of tissues used for camera lenses have fiberglass in them, so you want to use something that's softer than that. So Soft Teak by Kleenex was a material developed in World War II. I think it was developed as a filtering material, but it is very soft, does not have fiberglass particles in it, and will not damage your optics if you're not going scrubbing it. So, we'll have to go over how to properly clean a telescope here at one point.
So we could do a live setup and clean
Yeah.
something. Yeah.
Sure. Okay.
So I'm answering Josh. We do have the telescope. He's wanting a DAR 127 for,
Okay.
I don't know, 1200 millimeter focal length is what he said. That's not the DAR 127.
No.
No, that's gonna be the FirstLight.
Yeah. Now the other thing to do is this Josh that's looking for
Josh
this.
Bush. Yep, Josh Bush.
Contact our dealers. They may have some stuff in inventory. Check around with OPT or Woodland Hills. B&H is another one that may have inventory.
High Point might.
High Point, yeah.
Adorama potentially would as well.
Mm-hmm.
They're pretty well the only ones that carry any kind of volume of any.
Right.
But the FirstLight AR 1200 or 127 1200 Mazda 1 is out of stock.
Yes. Okay. Well, I've included on this program because this is our main subject was about eyepieces, but how to choose and use eyepieces. Now, if you've seen this video before, and you may have because it's a video that I made a few years ago, but it does have all the formulas in it. It takes into account seeing conditions. How to overcome light pollution, how to overcome, how to use masking over your telescope to improve it during times of bad seeing, how to choose the lowest power eyepieces, how to choose the highest power eyepieces. We cover Barlow lenses, and the only thing I didn't cover in there was like filters. But it's good information, and if you go through the whole thing and learn how to measure or get your dilated pupil measured for your eye so that you can find the lowest useful magnification for your telescope, because you don't want to grow the exit pupil larger than what your eye can dilate to. It's just kind of throwing away light at that point. You might do it if you're just looking for a really wide field. That's a possibility. But yeah. So that's kind of our program for today. Unless you have some.
Yes, Scott. Let's talk about real quick. You want all the light going into your eye.
Yeah.
But then you turn around and say, "Boy, a wide eyepiece is nice." And so you're wasting all of that light that's not going into your eye. But there are some distinct benefits of having that wide field of view.
Oh, sure.
Right,
I mean, if you're trying to capture some, huge object, or you're trying to get clusters of galaxies or clusters of stars together, stuff like that, and you really want this super wide field of view, I have nothing against it. It's just that if you're using a refractor, it seems to be less of a problem because you don't have a shadow from a secondary obstruction. Okay, in reflector telescopes, you always have this secondary mirror. It's in the front, in the middle of the telescope. This is also why, this is how you know that dust does not affect your image, because you can't see that secondary, okay, unless you go down to such low magnification that the exit pupil, which is the beam of light coming out of the eyepiece, and again in the video I show you how to measure that beam. As you grow that beam, the width of it, well, proportionately, you're also growing the shadow size at the same time. Most people only notice this when they are observing at low power with a Cassegrain telescope or a Newtonian telescope at really low magnification during the day, because their pupil is now constricted down, okay, maybe 3 millimeters or something.
2 or 1.
Yeah, and and if the secondary obstruction is a couple of millimeters, you will definitely see the shadow. It's kind of weird to see it, but at night your eye dilates to 5, 6, 7 millimeters, whatever. Then that obstruction just disappears, and you don't see the shadow any longer. So,
well, and the benefit I get from, and I find from wide field eyepieces, is it allows my eye to relax. It allows my mind to relax instead of trying to focus and hold still and keep that 5 millimeter exit pupil on my 5 millimeter pupil,
Yeah.
which is a struggle, and it's continuously trying to keep it there. Those wide field eyepieces let you. It just relaxes. It's more relaxing,
More
and
relaxing for you. Well, relaxing also is a key factor in observing objects. The more
right,
you relax, the more you see. So,
right, the more your mind and body and eye relax.
yep.
The other benefit is at star parties, especially with people who have never looked at a telescope before, with a wide field eyepiece, they're liable to find something. They don't have to be right on top of it. And I love watching somebody look for the moon, or Jupiter or Saturn, and you can see the image of it moving around their eyeball, and all of a sudden you can see that bright light, and all of a sudden it disappears into their pupil, and instantly they give a little twitch, and it's like, oh, they saw it. I know they saw it because I saw the light disappear into their pupil, and
Right.
I know.
You see them kind of like back up a little bit.
Yeah,
Whoa.
yeah, absolutely. And so
That's cool.
that wide field eyepiece lets them find it without having to struggle to find that tiny, tiny little beam of light. That's the benefit I like of the wide eyepieces.
Wow. So Josh Bush wanted that DAR 127 that was on our certified pre-owned. Let me just look at this again.
Are you looking in Shopify?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not looking at the back end though. Are you?
That's where I'm headed. If you were doing that, I was going to go to the back end.
Go and check. He says it shows sold out now.
He's wanting a CPO, right? CPO DAR?
Yep.
Yeah, zero in inventory. We have a few of the retail grade for $6.99. Not a lot. We'll sell out of those in the next month at the rate we're selling them. We'll have the retail grade DARs.
We had any new ones left?
Yeah, we'll be sold out, and at the rate they've been selling, we'll be sold out in a month,
Yeah.
and no more until probably August.
Josh is saying that he'd like to get one, but he was looking at that certified pre-owned.
Yeah, my advice to people: if you see a CPO, if you're looking at a certified pre-owned telescope, and it's on the website, and you're serious about it, then pull the trigger and buy it.
Yeah.
Because most of the CPO stuff is up for no more than 24 or 36 hours, and it's gone. There's a market for that, and people snap those up. So we might be able to scrounge something together, Josh. I'll have Tyler see if Tyler has a good idea of what's back in the return warehouse, and he might be able to lay hands on one.
Yeah.
We shall see.
So call us tomorrow, Josh, in the morning.
I think Josh has my number.
Okay. Oh yeah, Michael Florian says astromart.com. Another place. CloudyNights.com is another place to go look for used merchandise. And a lot of our dealers also carry used merchandise. So because our warranty is transferable, okay, it makes it, it keeps the higher value on those scopes. So a lot of dealers like to sell our product used.
And if you buy a telescope from us, to get that transferable lifetime warranty, you have to register it within 60 days of purchase. And if you don't,
haven't. It's crazy.
I know, and they call them, they're mad. Well, I thought I had a lifetime warranty, and it's like, well, you did until you didn't register it, or the previous owner didn't register it.
Yeah.
I had that conversation on Tuesday with somebody,
and we have the extended care program through Explorer Alliance, and they can do that, and that gives them a lot of the same benefits. So,
right.
Yep. So, okay. Well, I am ready to segue over to the eyepiece video. Anything else you'd like to add, Kent, before we?
No, it's good to see everybody. It's good to be back in the office and back on this, and it's awesome to be back in NASA to have the Saturn V and the Lunar Lander with me. Those are fun to play on at lunch. Let me tell you what, folks.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah. So Anyway, all right.
Have you watched inside of one of the rocket engine nozzles or something?
That's fun. It's fun to turn the valves and see what happens.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So sometimes people run for their lives. It's really crazy. I don't know why. So giant whooshing noise and pure hydrogen. I don't know. It scares people. So
Does.
anyway, yeah. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and bounce off.
Okay.
Shipping's called me a couple of times, so I'm gonna get back there and see what's going on. So good to see everybody. Thank you for joining us. See you next Tuesday, and have a great weekend. Hope you get some clear skies. Bye.
Take care, Kent. Bye bye. Okay, so it's just you and I right now. I am going to run this program. I do want you to check out the calendar coming up for Explorer, on the Explorer Alliance live page. So you just go to Explorer Scientific /live and you'll see upcoming programs. But one I'm getting very, very excited about, a couple of them actually. One of them is the Global Star Party with the editors of Astronomy Magazine, including David Eicher. So that's going to be very cool. They're going to co-host that event. I think that's going to happen February 4th. They're supposed to confirm that date with me. And then starting, I think, February 8th and running for several days is the Winter Star Party. And so you're going to see some classic lectures from days gone by. You're going to see some new lectures. You'll see some product demos and stuff like that. There'll be door prizes. It's an awesome event. Unfortunately, it's held every year in Florida, usually in the Florida Keys. But of course, due to COVID, they're just doing it virtual. But the cool thing is that the whole thing's free. So if you go to explorescientific.com/Winter Star Party, you'll see how to get registered for that. So, and I will switch over to my eyepiece video, and we'll see you tomorrow. Take care. You're at the Explore Scientific Customer Service and Training Center, and we're going to learn how to choose and use eyepieces. Modern design of telescope eyepieces have revolutionized visual astronomy with breakthroughs in computer optimization and new optical glasses. Today's top eyepiece manufacturers design high-performance eyepieces with superior edge performance with a wide range of apparent fields and long eye relief. So how do you choose? Today there are many premium quality eyepieces to choose from for your telescopes. But with so many focal lengths and a variety of apparent fields of view, how do you choose what's best and what fits you best for your specific telescope? Here are the eyepiece selection considerations. We're going to find out the lowest useful magnification of your telescope, the highest useful magnification, how to choose eyepieces between lowest and highest useful magnification that will give you the medium steps in power with your telescope, selecting a set of eyepieces that have the apparent fields of view that you desire that will produce the true fields of view that you typically require for the objects that you observe. And then you need to consider a set of eyepieces that have enough eye relief so that you can have the eye comfort that you require. This is how a telescope works. Aperture, focal length, f ratio. The telescope focal length divided by the telescope aperture equals f ratio. From here we can determine magnification and true fields of view. So let's discuss focal length. All telescopes and eyepieces have optics polished to focus at a certain distance. This distance between the lens and the focused image, usually measured in millimeters, is called focal length. A longer focal length lens produces a narrower field of view, and a shorter focal length lens produces a wider field of view. So how does magnification work? The focused image from the telescope lens is being magnified by the eyepiece. In this case, the telescope focal length is about 160 millimeters, and the eyepiece is only 20 millimeters, producing 8 times magnification. This is how we calculate magnification. What you do is you take the telescope focal length, usually in millimeters, divided by the eyepiece focal length, also in millimeters, and that will equal magnification. Or you can take the telescope aperture in millimeters and divide it by the exit pupil in millimeters, and that will also equal the magnification. Now we'll discuss exit pupil. Every telescope and eyepiece combination will produce an exit pupil. It's the focus beam of light where the image is viewed. The diameter of the exit pupil changes with magnification. Lower magnifications produce a larger exit pupil, giving a brighter image. Higher magnifications produce a smaller exit pupil with less image brightness. This is the formula for calculating exit pupil. You take the eyepiece focal length in millimeters and you divide it by the telescope F ratio, and that will give you the exit pupil number. Or you can take the telescope aperture in millimeters and divide it by magnification, and this will also give you the exit pupil number. Both of these numbers will end up being in millimeters. Observing faint objects. Telescopes are light-gathering devices capable of focusing images of objects at incredible distances. Under dark skies and the right telescope and eyepiece combination, it's possible to visually observe faint galaxies that are many millions of light years away. Of course, with more light to your eye, you can see the faintest details of every object you look at. But to see the faintest details, you need to be comfortable and observe at the lowest useful magnification. In order to see the faintest and the most distant celestial objects possible through your telescope, you need to find the eyepiece focal length that will produce an exit pupil that will closely match the entrance pupil of your fully dilated eye when dark adapted. For young people, it's not unusual for pupils to dilate to 7 millimeters or more. Older people may have pupils that can only dilate to 5 millimeters. So visit your eye doctor to have your fully dilated pupils accurately measured. With this information, you can choose the perfect lowest power eyepiece. Now, for determining lowest useful magnification power, try to determine which eyepiece on your telescope will produce an exit pupil that comes closest to matching your fully dilated eye. If you select an eyepiece that produces a larger exit pupil than what your eye can dilate to, then you're not able to experience the full brightness of the focused image. It's important to calculate the eyepiece focal length for lowest useful magnification. Here's a useful formula for calculating the eyepiece focal length for lowest useful magnification. What you do is you take the telescope aperture in millimeters and you divide it by the fully dilated eye in millimeters. That will give you lowest useful magnification. Then take the telescope focal length in millimeters and divide it by the lowest useful magnification number. That'll tell you which eyepiece focal length you need. Another typical way to find lowest useful magnification is to use the rule of thumb of 3.5 power per inch of aperture. With a 102 millimeter lens, a 4-inch aperture telescope, the lowest useful magnification is 14 times. But what about high power observing? Telescopes are also detail resolving devices capable of focusing highly detailed images of objects. Under steady skies called good or perfect seeing conditions, and the right telescope and eyepiece, it's possible to visually observe incredibly fine features of bright objects like the planets and the moon. But there's a limit to how much magnification you can use, and that limitation will be based on the atmospheric seeing conditions and the telescope's aperture. Having several eyepiece focal lengths from lowest useful magnification to highest useful magnification will maximize your observing potential. Atmospheric seeing and the Pickering scale. The atmosphere can be very turbulent, called bad seeing, to perfectly calm, called perfect seeing. Turbulence in the air causes stars to scintillate or twinkle. Viewing conditions with bad seeing, 1 to 4 on the Pickering scale, distort images of stars, planets, and even the moon. This distortion looks much worse with larger aperture and higher magnification. Viewing conditions with good to perfect seeing, which would be 7 to 10 on the Pickering scale, allows telescopes to be used at higher magnifications, which will reveal fine details on every object you observe. The Pickering scale shows 1 is the worst seeing with 5 arcseconds or more star blur at the sharpest focus, and 10 is perfect with 0.5 arcseconds or less. Average nights of seeing would range from 5 to 7 on the Pickering scale. To determine highest useful magnification on any given telescope, determine the telescope's aperture in millimeters and multiply that number by 3. With this 102 millimeter refractor, the result is 306 power. So how do you calculate the eyepiece focal length for highest useful magnification? So this formula is for calculating the eyepiece focal length for the highest useful magnification. What you do is you take the telescope aperture in millimeters, multiply by 3, and that'll give you the highest useful magnification number. Or a more conservative number could be brought about by taking the telescope aperture in inches, multiplying it by 60, or if your seeing conditions are not that great, maybe by 50, and that would give you the new highest useful magnification number. Then you take the telescope focal length in millimeters and you divide it by the highest useful magnification number. That will give you the eyepiece focal length that you need to get. What's aperture masking and how can it improve your high power observing? During times of poor to bad seeing, images of the moon, planets, and double stars observed at higher power can be improved by reducing the entrance aperture of your telescope. Masks can be made from various sizes from cardboard. With less aperture, there is less resolving power, but images will look sharper. Now that you understand lowest useful magnification and highest useful magnification, you need to calculate the medium steps in power so that you can get the best observing potential possible. Many astronomers own several eyepieces that range from lowest to highest power for their telescope. Medium power eyepieces are also selected by magnification, apparent field of view, and eye relief. Many astronomers begin their observations at low or lowest power and then gradually increase power until the object is best seen. What are eyepiece multipliers? Increasing magnification of your lower power eyepieces can also be done by adding focal extenders or a Barlow lens to your eyepieces. The advantage is that these devices can increase the magnification of all your eyepieces, but the eye relief will remain unaffected. This is especially useful if you need long eye relief of your long focal length eyepiece, but you want more magnification. Many people want to know what's the difference between apparent field of view and true field of view. True field of view is the actual degrees of sky coverage that you're looking at, the chunk of sky that you see. But apparent field of view is the angle of degrees from your eye to the edge of the field stop in the eyepiece. When you're looking through an eyepiece that has wider apparent field of view, you not only get more true field of view, but you get this effect that you're seeing through a wide picture window. More apparent field of view gives you more true field of view. The Orion Nebula M42 is 60 arc minutes by 66 arc minutes in angular size, or twice the size of the full moon in the sky. This is M42 with a telescope of 714 millimeters of focal length and a 68 degree 20 millimeter eyepiece. This gives you 35.7 power, and it will also produce a 1.9 degree true field of view. Then in this other image, we've got M42 with a telescope of the same focal length, 714 millimeters, and the same focal length of eyepiece of 20 millimeters. So we're getting the same magnification of 35.7 power. But with a 100 degree apparent field of view, we're getting 2.8 degrees true field of view. You actually see more area around the object, but at the same magnification. So how do you calculate true field of view? You take the eyepiece apparent field of view and you divide it by magnification, and that will equal true field of view in degrees. Or another way of doing this is take the eyepiece field stop, you can get that from the manufacturer, you divide it by the telescope focal length in millimeters, and you multiply it by 57.3, and that will also give you the true field of view number in degrees. You have to relax to see more, and this is the importance of eye relief. Eye relief is the distance from the last surface of an eyepiece of which the observer's eye can see the full viewing angle. If the observer's eye is outside of this distance, then the observer will not see the full viewing angle. Long eye relief eyepieces give more eye comfort, and if long enough, 18 millimeters or more, will allow observers to wear glasses when observing. That's usually needed for someone that has astigmatism in their eyes. Generally speaking, short focal length, higher power eyepieces have less eye relief than long focal length, lower power eyepieces. Eye relief distance information is provided by the manufacturer. You love to observe deep sky objects, but what about light pollution? Just because you're not under the best dark sky sight doesn't mean that you can't still observe some bright galaxies, star clusters, and nebula. Improving your skills as an astronomer has a lot to do with how often you observe, even if that means you do most of your observing near city lights. To improve the view of deep sky objects under light polluted skies, you can use moderate increases in magnification, which will make the background sky look darker. There are also special filters that you can use with your eyepieces that can increase contrast. To judge the quality of your sight, you can use the Bortle scale. You can have the darkest skies possible, but also not see very many stars, and that has to do with atmospheric transparency.
The Bortle scale is a 9-level numeric scale that measures the night sky's brightness of a particular location. It quantifies the astronomical observability of celestial objects and the interference caused by light pollution. Class 9 on the Bortle scale is the most light polluted sky, where you can barely see any stars in the sky at all. When you go all the way down to Class 1, you're now under perfectly dark sky conditions, where the sky is black to the horizon. But there's another aspect that's very important to astronomers, and that is sky transparency and atmospheric extinction. It's possible to be under a dark sky, but not to be able to see many stars due to poor sky transparency or atmospheric extinction. Generally speaking, the very best dark sky sites are far away from city lights, you're up high in elevation with smooth terrain, and the sky has very little water vapor or aerosols in the atmosphere. You can learn more about sky transparency and atmospheric extinction at this website. So to sum it up, by choosing the right eyepieces, you're going to have the most relaxing, most detailed observations you can possibly make. The more comfortable you are, and the longer you look, the more you see. Long eye relief eyepieces with large apparent field characteristics allow you to relax more at the eyepiece by letting you back away from the optics while allowing your eye to comfortably scan the field of view in order to use averted vision. A relaxed eye observing at any magnification that's not staring at the object can see fainter details and finer structure than a strained eye. So happy observing.